Hey, welcome. Have you ever stopped to think about why you just love certain products, but others not so much? And what about the real mystery? How does your own brain decide what's worth your time and money? Well, today, we're diving deep into that. We're going to connect the dots between how businesses create the products we buy and the hidden shortcuts our minds use to choose them. It's this amazing mix of marketing and psychology, so let's get right into it. But first, let's start with a really fundamental question, one that hits all of us, not just when we're shopping, but in, every part of life. Why is it that we can have all the facts, all the data right in front of us and still make a choice we end up regretting? That's the big puzzle we're going to try and solve today. So to get to the bottom of that, we first have to figure out what we're actually choosing between. It sounds so simple, right? But what a product really is, well, it's a lot more than what you see on the surface. Okay, so the official definition says a product isn't just a thing, it's a whole bundle of attributes. Some you can touch, like its design, and some you can't, like the brand's reputation or the feeling you get when you use it. You should really think of it as a solution, an experience, or even a promise that's designed to solve one of your problems or fulfill a desire.
This diagram here just breaks it down perfectly. A fantastic way to think about any product is like an onion, right? It has these layers of value, all built around a central core. It's such a great visual for understanding what we are actually buying, which goes way beyond just the physical object. So let's peel back those layers. Right at the very heart of it all, you've got the core product. This is the fundamental reason you're buying it. For a car, it's simple, transportation. The next layer out is the desired product. This is the stuff you expect, the sleek design, the trusted brand name, a certain level of quality. And then that outer layer is the augmented product. This is all the extra stuff that makes the experience complete, like a great warranty, fast delivery, or helpful customer support. And that's where the magic happens, where companies really set themselves apart.
And this quote about Starbucks, it just hits the nail on the head. When you go to Starbucks, are you really just paying for coffee beans and hot water? No way. The core product is the caffeine fix, sure, but the augmented product is the comfy chair, the free Wi-Fi, that familiar vibe. That's what you're actually buying, a predictable, pleasant moment for yourself.
Okay, so if a product is this complicated bundle of value, how on earth do companies figure out what we actually care about? It's simple, really. They have to listen. And that brings us to a super powerful tool, market research.
Now, there are basically two main ways to listen, and they answer very different questions. You've got qualitative research, which goes deep. It uses things like in-depth interviews and focus groups to ask why. It's all about getting to the motivations and feelings behind our choices. Then you have quantitative research, which goes broad. This is your surveys, your experiments, and asks how many. This is all about numbers, stats, and proving a theory with a big sample size.
This chart just sums it all up. Think of it like this. Qualitative research is like having a really deep, meaningful conversation with a handful of people. Quantitative research is like taking a quick poll of a giant stadium crowd. One gives you rich detail, the other gives you massive scale. And to really, truly get the market, you absolutely need both.
All right, so a company can design the perfect product, they can do all the research in the world, but they still have one final, totally unpredictable hurdle to clear, the human mind. Because it turns out when we make a decision, it's not just one voice in our head calling the shots. There are actually two.
Let me introduce you to the two systems running the show in your brain. First up, you've got the automatic system. This is your gut reaction, it's fast, it's intuitive, and it's happening completely under the surface. Then you've got the reflective system. This is your conscious, deliberate mind. It's slow, analytical, and it takes real work to use. And here's the kicker. These two systems are pretty much in a constant battle for control over your choices.
The real problem is that our fast automatic system is, well, kind of lazy. It loves to take shortcuts to save energy. And while these shortcuts, called heuristics, are super useful most of the time, they can also set these little mental traps for us that lead to very predictable mistakes.
Just think of heuristics as your brain's built-in rules of thumb. They're absolutely essential for getting through the day without having a meltdown over every single tiny decision. But, and this is a big but, sometimes they lead to systematic errors in our thinking. We call those biases. Let's see a couple of them in action.
Let's try one on for size right now. I've got a question for you. Is the boiling point of water on top of Mount Everest higher or lower than 10 degrees Celsius? Okay, that's the first part. Now take a second and try to guess the actual temperature. Got a number in your head?
The real answer is around 69 degrees Celsius. So how close were you?
My guess is, if you're like most people, your number was probably way lower than that, maybe somewhere in the 20s or 30s.
So why did that happen? Well, you just experienced something called the anchoring bias. That first number I gave you, 10 degrees, it acted like a mental anchor. Even though you knew it was wrong, your automatic system just latched onto it and your final guess didn't move far enough away from it. This is why the original price on a sales tag is so effective. It anchors our whole perception of what a good deal is.
Another one of these mental traps is the availability heuristic. Our brain uses a very simple rule. If I can think of an example easily, it must happen a lot. So, what's more likely to kill you? A shark attack or a piece of falling airplane? We immediately think of Jaws. We see these dramatic news stories, so we say sharks. But in reality, you are 30 times more likely to be killed by falling airplane parts. It's just less memorable, less available in our minds, so our gut feeling gets the odds totally wrong.
And for our last one, let's look at the representativeness heuristic, which is basically our brain's love for a good stereotype. Let's say I describe someone as shy and very detail-oriented. Is that person more likely to be a librarian or a farmer? Almost everyone says librarian, right? Because the description represents our mental image of a librarian. But we completely ignore the most important fact, the base rate. There are way more farmers in the world than librarians. Our automatic brain just loves a story that fits a neat little pattern, even when it means ignoring the actual math.
So if our brains are wired with all these little glitches, are we just doomed to make bad choices? Not at all. The secret is knowing when you need to slow down and consciously fire up that slow, reflective system. And the best way to do that is to use a clear, structured process. This 5-step method is a fantastic way to override those automatic biases. First, you have to really understand and clarify the actual problem. Second, you generate a bunch of alternatives. Don't just go with the first idea that pops into your head. Third, decide on the criteria you'll use to judge those options. Fourth, you go through and systematically evaluate each option against your criteria. And finally, you pick the best path forward and make a real plan. It literally forces your reflective brain to get in the driver's seat.
And at the end of the day, this is really the key takeaway. Look, we're never going to be perfectly rational robots. Our gut instincts are just too powerful, and honestly, they're too useful for that. The goal isn't to get rid of them. The goal is to be reasonable. It's about being aware enough of our own biases to step back and make choices that actually line up with our true interests, our values, and our beliefs.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Now that you know about the anchor that can pull you off course, the vivid story that feels more real than reality, and the tempting stereotype that can trick you, which of your own rational decisions from the past week are you going to look at a little differently? It's definitely something worth thinking about.
Thanks so much for joining us for this Explain.